Smile is the first installment to the extension of the horror short film Laura Hasn't Slept. It was for the most part well regarded by mainstream audiences, but there was also some discourse here and there among horror lovers. Some said the movie was trite, others thought that it told a unique, well-crafted story that had some genuinely frightening moments. I want to talk about the former because while I didn't hate this movie, I did think the movie lacked originality and that it was heavy-handed in its messaging. With the release of Smile 2, I thought it would be appropriate to take a look back at the first Smile. So let's explore the themes, polarizing storytelling, and idea behind Smile. I think the first thing we need to do is take a look back at the short film that inspired Smile, Laura Hasn't Slept. The short follows Laura, who has been having nightmares and is consulting her therapist about those nightmares. She explains that she has been having the same dream over and over. The setting changes, but one theme maintains. She sees a man, and he is smiling at her. The smile is unsettling, and she feels deeply afraid of this man. So, she doesn't sleep in order to avoid this terrifying encounter. She doesn't want to see whatever face is behind the man's face. The therapist starts to act strange, and Laura realizes that right now she is in the dream. He asks her to take a look at him, and she knows that if she does, it'll be the last thing she sees. He eventually pops out of the corner, and she sees what was behind his mask, causing her to tear the skin from her own face. I'm assuming it also causes her death. Laura Hasn't Slept is a great concept that I feel was executed in a very boring way. I would honestly have to say that Smile is actually a step up in terms of scare factor, and I'll explain why I think that is in a second. Laura Hasn't Slept seems somewhat cheesy to me though. However, the actress is phenomenal, which is likely why they kept her on as the first kill in the full-length Smile. While I understand the strange paradoxical notion of a smile being both unsettling and welcoming, it just doesn't resonate with me. And even if it did, this therapist's smile wasn't very unsettling, which is likely one reason why the Smile movie worked much better. Better actors who were able to pull off that creepy, hyper-exaggerated look. The extremely over-exaggerated AI type smiles often feel really goofy, so I'm glad that they maintained their actor's natural smile with slight enhancements like makeup instead of doing that CG look. Overall, it's not a great short. There is an element of psychological suspense that I feel falls short here. I've seen some incredible short films convey some pretty complex themes and cool, scary moments with minuscule runtime, and this is just not one of them. So we've seen the origin story to Smile. The woman is haunted by an entity that makes her feel uncomfortable, and she is plagued by her own inevitable end. We see this in Smile as well. A woman is haunted by an entity and is concerned with her inevitable end. But the haunting is now trauma, and also it's not just her in her dreams, it's the contagious jumping in a line from person to person with seemingly no real connections between them monster. Okay, so the movie wants to say something. Cool, I'm fine with that. So if you're going to do that, it's important to understand what you are adding to the conversation. Yes, trauma is something that can have insidious effects on your life. It can haunt you and make you feel like you're coming undone at the seams, like the people around you can't be trusted. It affects all aspects of your life, undoubtedly. But Smile is giving us the most shallow version of depth possible to explore this concept. Not to mention, a little subtlety on the subject would have been deeply appreciated. I want to watch a movie and see many different meanings. I want it to resonate with me personally. I don't want to be told what to think. I don't want to understand the movie, I want the movie to understand me. Finn takes that away from the audience by creating a surface level look at a very intense and honestly easily nuanced subject. However, I do appreciate the small areas where the audience was able to see a little bit more depth. When Sosie's character Rose begins to unravel, you start to see the people around her slip away, which is very much something that could possibly happen in real life. Losing friends because you're going through a mental health crisis is totally real, but their exit from her life is almost comically fast. It's like the people in her life can't even handle the smallest amount of change. A-Train was barely even in the movie. She might as well have been single and alone because he did absolutely nothing for her and or the plot. Which brings me to my next point, the plot. I have been avoiding this term for a while on my videos because I know how divisive it is, but I have to say that Smile seems like it's trying to be elevated horror. And hear me out before you click off the video. All horror movies are an expression of something. That something might be about familial relationships, the socio-political landscape, internal struggles, etc. I say this in like all of my videos, and I will for the rest of my life. Take, for instance, a movie like 13 Ghosts, which I love, by the way. It conveys thematic elements about family and grief. The theme is shoveled in there amongst shots of the female chest area and a man baby wearing a bib. But it's there. It's super unsubtle too, by the way. The movie wants you to focus on the practical scares rather than the more complex narrative structure. And that's understandable because that's exactly what the movie is trying to convey. You know what you're getting into. So if all horror movies set out to say something, no matter how absurd or fun the premise, why is the director of Smile acting as if scary tropes and meaningful messaging hasn't already been done? He says in an article by IndieWire that he wants to give the audience the traditional scares, aka jump scares, that they expect from a horror movie while also giving them depth. But that's what horror always does. He isn't doing anything revolutionary. It feels like Finn wants to do a Hereditary with traditional jump scares. Okay, you can do that. But what you gave us, Finn, my man Finn, was the same thing that we have been getting. Shallow depth with a decent scare factor, like 13 Ghosts and many other movies have already done. And on top of that, you even took the premise and scary moments from other arguably better and definitely more subtle films to do it, only to look back at those films and say, I did something different. But then it's like, did you though? You haven't breached some imaginary line between elevated horror and the more lowbrow horror movies. As someone who likes both and can appreciate both, I can also tell you that there is relatively no difference in what is happening between these two subgenres, if you can call them that, of horror. They both tell important stories, even if the execution is vastly different. I think my main problem with Smile is that it doesn't know what the hell it wants to be. Is it a goofy movie with jump scares? Is it a psychological horror that gets into your head? I think in an effort to present the story as something more meaningful, it fell apart. The messaging felt like an afterthought that the director put in the movie because he wanted it to be considered more highbrow horror, instead of just starting with a complex story that he wanted to tell and that resonating with his audience and himself. And to make matters worse, for all of that heavy-handed messaging, it still didn't say much of anything. I don't want to spoil the ending, but let's just say a lot of people were really frustrated with it. Smile is not a terrible film. I think I'm more frustrated with the fact that it had more potential than what it demonstrated if it had just known where it was going. I've heard the second one's much better, and it's excellent to see a director grow and learn. I think Finn has a ton of potential, and I look forward to seeing future works from him outside of Smile, and I look forward to seeing the second one too, which I'll be doing this weekend. But what did you think of Smile? I know people get intensely upset when you say you don't like a movie that they love, but it's not a personal attack. It is just my opinion. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? I hope this video wasn't too disjointed with my thoughts. I just kind of wanted to get them down on paper and in video format for you. So let me know if you didn't understand. And also let me know in the comments if you're going to see Smile too. And if you have already, don't spoil it. But what did you think about it? And I will see you in the next video. Bye.